What would happen if you walked into an American restaurant and watched an entire bag of steaming seafood get dumped straight onto the table? No plates, no silverware, just shrimp, crab, sausage, and corn drowning in butter. For many first-time European visitors, this wasn't dinner. It looked like a full-scale hygiene disaster unfolding in front of them. Before we expose this shocking food culture clash, keep watching, hit like, and follow, because the real twist is coming. In Europe, seafood has traditionally been treated almost like a ceremony. It arrives carefully arranged on porcelain, surrounded by a spotless tablecloth and polished cutlery, with every piece placed exactly where it belongs. There is order, there is restraint, there is elegance. Then you cross the Atlantic, walk into a Cajun seafood restaurant, and suddenly, everything you thought you knew about civilized dining begins collapsing before your eyes. A waiter brings out a steaming plastic bag, opens it, and pours the entire thing directly across the table. Shrimp, crab, sausage, potatoes, corn, butter, spices, all of it lands together in one glorious disaster. To someone seeing this for the first time, it doesn't look like a restaurant meal. It looks like the aftermath of a hurricane, or worse, animal feed served on paper. Several British visitors described the experience as chaotic, unhygienic, and completely against everything they understood about table etiquette. One question kept appearing in their minds. Why would Americans spend around $110 on a meal that looks like somebody dumped the contents of a kitchen disaster onto a table? To the European eye, it was almost an insult to centuries of culinary presentation. And then came the real psychological barrier. You are staring at a mountain of grease, sauce, shells, and seafood sitting directly in front of you. There isn't a beautiful porcelain plate separating you from the food. There isn't a neat knife and fork allowing you to maintain a respectable distance. Your first instinct is almost automatic. This has to be a terrible mistake. But is it actually unhygienic? Or is something deeper happening? Could it simply be the old European instinct for order fighting against an American idea of food that is messy, excessive, physical, and completely free? Don't call the sanitation police just yet, because the most dangerous weapon in this entire culinary attack isn't the pile of seafood. It's the liquid gold that is about to cover every single piece of it. This is crazy. Look at this. This is so nice. When you come to New Orleans, you have to try this crawfish. The crab legs, the sausage. The excitement is immediate, almost confusing. In a world where Europeans have been trained to approach food with knives and forks, those utensils aren't merely tools. They are a protective barrier. They allow you to control the food without actually touching it. You don't grab it. You don't wrestle with it. You don't get sauce on your fingers. You maintain civilization. But then the American seafood boil arrives, and that entire defense system collapses. Got to get all in there. I got no spice, no sauce. Sauce on the side. On the side. All right, I'm not good at crab legs. You're going to have to teach me. Oh, can you teach me? Yeah, I would have said to do that one last. Is that the big leg? You doing the big leg first? I guess. I don't know. I love it. Okay, wait. Here we go. Don't people do that? Stop, stop. Girl, okay. I love that. Wait, I didn't even see what you did. I did it. Okay, let's try the sausage. So it does work. Wait, stop. I cannot. Yes. All right, what'd you do? You broke both the knuckles. Yes. You broke both of them. I guess. I don't know what I did, to be honest. This is the moment the European defense mechanism begins to crack. At an American-style seafood table, eating isn't elegant anymore. It's physical. It's messy. It's almost aggressively hands-on. You are expected to grab the crab, crack the shell, pull the meat out, dip it into sauce, and somehow keep your dignity intact. For an English gentleman, this can feel like civilization taking several steps backward. And then comes perhaps the strangest symbol of all, the plastic bib. Imagine grown adults, business owners, professionals, intellectuals, people who normally sit beneath chandeliers with polished silverware, suddenly wearing plastic bibs like children because the sauce is powerful enough to attack their shirts. One British visitor captured the absurdity perfectly while staring at a massive seafood boil. "What's happening, boys? I'm in Swansea, and we've got a big seafood boil. So look at the size of this, boys. Anyway, let's get into it. We're going to start off with the biggest prawn I've ever seen in my life. My sister had a baby, so we're going to give this a go, boys. Let's get this open here. Look at the gloves, boys, and a bib as well. Let's have a go. Look at the size of this, boys. That's absolutely unbelievable. I never seen a prawn that big in my whole entire life. It took me a while to peel, boys, and I butchered it a bit, but here we go. We'll get it in the sauce here. Look at that." The point isn't simply that Americans eat seafood differently. It's that the entire performance is almost the opposite of European dining culture. There are no ceramic plates protecting the table from the food. Instead, there is a thin paper liner between the wooden surface and a mountain of shrimp, crab, sausage, potatoes, and corn covered in sauce. Some British visitors jokingly compared these seafood boils to cauldrons, as if an ancient witch had decided to become a chef. And yet, something strange begins happening once the first bite arrives. My timbers are about to be shivered trying a seafood boil for the first time as a Brit. Everyone has been telling me to come here, and you ask and you shall receive. So let's give it a go. I cannot wait for this. Now, as someone that doesn't really like seafood, this is going to be interesting. I went for the shrimp and crab combo, which is 10 pieces head-on shrimp, 24 naked shrimp, 20 snow crab legs, 4 taties, 2 corn on the cob, and a load of soft, moist garlic bread. Jesus Christ, that was a mouthful. The reaction changes almost immediately. Oh my days, do not piss me off. Them potatoes were 10 out of 10. I've also never tried crab in my life until today. Posing with it like I just caught it. You can really tell it's my first time. I was buzzing to try it though, and bloody hell guys, I love crab. This corn on the cob was the juiciest one I've ever had in my life. It was laced with something. It was insane. Then came the shrimp. Also, first time trying a shrimp, it gets messy. The head still attached created another psychological hurdle. I'm not sure how I feel about shrimp, but I had them anyway. It's just the heads on them. Another voice responds, "It's so weird seeing their little heads." And suddenly the confession arrives. I do prefer the naked shrimp, just because I can't see the heads. But despite all the discomfort, the verdict is becoming impossible to ignore. Definitely the messiest form of eating that I've ever been to. I actually kind of want to come here on a first date now and see how she holds up. And then the garlic bread arrives. Oh my days. It had me weak at the knees. Dipping it in the sauces and juices at the bottom of that cauldron was insane. Not too shabby at all. If I could get a pint glass of the leftover juice, I would. Think about how dramatic that reversal is. The same person who walked into the restaurant expecting something strange and potentially disgusting is now talking about drinking the leftover sauce. This is where the so-called post-American seafood syndrome begins. The mess that looked like a warning sign suddenly becomes part of the attraction. This has exceeded my expectations, and as someone who doesn't like seafood, I loved it. I need a bigger one now because that wasn't enough. Anyway, 10 out of 10, would recommend. However, this supposed culinary barbarism doesn't come cheaply everywhere. A huge seafood boil can cost around $110, and for someone used to European restaurant culture, paying that much for something served in a plastic bag can seem almost unbelievable. You're spending serious money, putting on plastic gloves, wearing a bib, and preparing yourself for what feels like a controlled food fight. One London visitor explained exactly how this obsession began. I've been doom scrolling all day because I'm a bit hungover, and I keep seeing seafood boils, like these people in Louisiana doing seafood boils. Obviously, I don't live in America. I live in London. So I Googled, where can I get a seafood boil? And I found a place. So we're going in and we're getting a seafood boil. It's going to cost me all of the money that I have, but let's have it, and let's see if it's as good as it looks. Then he walks inside and discovers the first unmistakable sign that the experience is about to become serious. Gloves. Okay, they've got gloves, so you know this place is legit. Wasn't cheap. It was $110. I feel like it's going to be worth it, and I've never had one before, so hopefully it's good. It's just come out. I don't even know how to approach this. It's like a full, actual bag, and then comes the first bite. This looks insanely good. All right, I'll try the potato first. The reaction is immediate. Oh, it's like spicy, buttery. That is good. Next comes the shrimp. All right, I'm going to try one of the prawns or shrimp. I got them deshelled because I don't want to do that. Then, the moment of realization. Wow, that is incredible. Thank you so much. That is delicious. What the? Why have I not had this before? Now the European suspicion is starting to disappear completely. The lobster appears. I got this thing. Think it's lobster. I'm not really sure how to attack this. A little chaos follows, but instead of ruining the experience, it becomes part of it. Look at that. Look at the flavor on that. Then the crab legs. And finally, the verdict. It's one of the best meals I've ever had in my life. After finishing the meal, the same visitor admitted, "That was incredible. Just leaving now. First seafood boil. That was sick. Service, everything was great. Bit expensive, but I mean, for what you get, you're not going to get one of these once a week, so I'd say go try it." Gloves, bibs, sauce, shells, and paper tables. The last remaining defenses of European dining etiquette are disappearing one by one. Once your hands are buried inside a pile of shrimp and crab, elegance becomes almost impossible. The only thing left to protect whatever dignity remains is a pile of napkins. I just finished my American seafood boil. My favorite part was probably the spuds. Then comes the struggle with the napkin, the laughter, the greasy hands, and the realization that everyone around the table is equally messy. And that is precisely where the transformation becomes complete. When you look around and see everyone else wrestling with crab legs, nobody can maintain the polished distance created by forks and porcelain. Even the most conservative gentleman eventually puts down the fork. Eating with your hands begins to feel less like bad manners and more like liberation. The warm crab meat, the slippery garlic butter, the sauce coating your fingers. These sensations create a kind of instinctive happiness that perfect table settings can never reproduce. Hello? Are you enjoying your experience? From 0 to 10? Because once your hands are ready to dive in, prepare yourself for the next psychological attack. The seafood itself is only the beginning. The real weapon is the sauce. Forget the chaotic crime scene for a moment. Forget the plastic table liner, the gloves, the shells, and the bib. Just when you think you're ready to turn around and walk away, something else grabs you. It isn't the expensive crab claw. It isn't the giant shrimp. It is the liquid gold spreading across the entire table, the sauce. In European cuisine, sauces can be delicate, controlled, carefully balanced, paired with wine, and presented with restraint. Americans looked at that philosophy and apparently decided to throw it into a blender with garlic, butter, Cajun spices, and pure culinary madness. This isn't merely a sauce. It is what could be called American addiction syndrome. The reddish-orange mixture glistens across every surface of the seafood. Garlic butter, salt, spices, heat, and richness combine into something that doesn't politely ask for your attention. it attacks. The first bite doesn't gently introduce itself to your tongue. It arrives like a marching band. For European diners accustomed to lighter flavors and restrained seasoning, the reaction can be almost physical. The first bite creates a pause. The eyes widen. The brain needs a second to process what just happened. It isn't horror anymore. It is shock, because somehow this chaotic sauce is unbelievably delicious. The word divine suddenly appears where unhygienic had been only minutes earlier. And that creates the greatest contradiction of the entire experience. Why did you spend so much time criticizing the mess when the mess was carrying the flavor? One traveler described it this way: "I've been seeing seafood boil on my For You page for ages. I've been wanting to try this. This was the one thing that I vowed and made everyone try when we came to America for the World Cup. So, love the crab legs. But you know what? The sauce is what was amazing. So it was spicy. It was a bit spicier than what I normally like, but it was good. And then just so much butter and garlic. And that's when the real madness begins. The soft garlic bread gets picked up and dragged through the deepest part of the bag, where all the butter, garlic, seafood juices, and Cajun spices have gathered into one forbidden pool of flavor. British visitors who once complained about the mess now admit they could happily order a pint just to drink the leftover sauce. This is no longer simple curiosity. It is full-blown post-American depression in reverse. The European visitor entered expecting a disaster and leaves wondering why nobody back home ever told them about it. But the seafood isn't even the biggest surprise, because hidden underneath all those expensive crab legs and giant shrimp are the ingredients nobody expected to become the stars: potatoes and corn. Can you believe it? People are willing to spend hundreds of dollars chasing lobster and king crab, yet some of the strongest reactions come from the cheapest things sitting inside the bag. Potatoes and corn become the unexpected main characters. The expensive seafood may get the poster, but the humble side dishes steal the entire movie. And that is where this American food philosophy becomes almost impossible for a European to understand. Why spend all this money on premium seafood only to become emotionally attached to a potato? Maybe because the potato is doing something the seafood cannot. It is absorbing everything: the spicy butter, the garlic, the Cajun seasoning. Every drop of that liquid gold sinks into the soft center of the potato. The seafood has shells protecting its meat, but the potato simply accepts the attack. It becomes a sponge for flavor. And suddenly, the humble potato isn't a side dish anymore. It is the secret weapon of the entire feast. Back to my hot date with Courtney. We're going to do a potato volcano. You're going to get your bowl of potato and you're going to bite the tail. The reaction is pure chaos. She's already got it. Do you need a spoon? Do that. Yeah, here. Mum's already got some meat right here, so I'm going to shove it in the hole. Oh, shoot. Get you some meat. I'm going to let this cool down anyway. Look at those hottest hits. There you go. I don't think I've ever seen anything more perfect. I know, really good today. It's very good. And then, somehow, the potato experience gets even more ridiculous. You're going to get your boiled egg. You're going to bite the tip. Oh my God. Oh my. Courtney, look at my vagina. Even smear like that. I don't know. I get exposed a little bit. I'm telling. Then comes the sauce. Would you like some sauce? Sure. Just spoon your sauce on for you. Perfect. Let me get our hat. Make the wee baby hat. Your lemon rain. Sorry if I'm squirting you. It's all good. Cheers. Cheers. One bite later. That's so good. And the table is officially a disaster.
My lap is in
It's a disaster. I got to stand up. Yeah, you got to show that. Be clean. Thanks, Mom. You are so welcome. This is the strange magic of the seafood boil. The cheapest ingredients somehow become the emotional center of the meal. Potatoes aren't merely there to fill space. They absorb the spicy garlic butter until every bite becomes a tiny explosion. Their texture is soft enough to melt on the tongue, but firm enough to hold together, creating the kind of starchy satisfaction that even the most skeptical European diner finds difficult to resist. Then comes the corn on the cob. Never underestimate the corn. One tourist described it as the juiciest corn cob he had ever tasted. The natural sweetness collides with the Cajun heat, creating a contrast that feels almost engineered. Some visitors become convinced there must be some secret ingredient hidden inside, because the flavor seems too intense to be ordinary corn. Sausage adds saltiness and chewiness, balancing the softness of the seafood and potatoes. And then there is the final weapon, garlic bread. It isn't simply bread. It becomes a tool, a weapon, a sponge designed specifically to scrape the remaining butter, garlic, spices, and seafood juices from the bottom of the bag. That final swipe through the sauce can be almost more satisfying than the seafood itself. The funniest part is the people who arrive declaring, "I don't like seafood." Somehow, those same people end up surrendering to a pile of potatoes, corn, sausage, and garlic bread. The inexpensive ingredients transform an expensive seafood dinner into something warmer, more intimate, and unmistakably American. The real luxury isn't always the most expensive ingredient. Sometimes it is the cheapest food prepared with enough flavor to make you forget what it cost. But after the carbohydrates and side dishes have stolen the spotlight, it is finally time for the real hunt. Get ready, because we're going after the gold. Once the corn and potatoes have temporarily satisfied your hunger, the serious battle begins. Make no mistake, eating seafood dumped directly onto a table isn't simply a meal, it is an expedition. Cracking crab shells becomes a physical challenge, sometimes even a dangerous mission for anyone wearing a designer outfit. This is where the tools come out: pliers, sharp forks, anything capable of defeating the armor protecting the treasure inside. Many diners compare the process to gold mining. You can spend 5 minutes fighting with a single shell, using every technique you have, only to receive perhaps 5 seconds of sweet crab meat as your reward. Does that sound unfair? Maybe, but that's exactly why it feels so satisfying. When you finally conquer a giant crab claw and pull out that perfect piece of meat, the victory feels completely different from eating seafood that arrived neatly arranged on porcelain. No silver plate can provide that feeling. No elegant fork can recreate it. You earned that bite. And then comes another seafood lesson that can trigger a surprising amount of emotional trauma. Snow crab versus king crab. Snow crab may be familiar and popular, but the moment you hold a genuine king crab leg, you understand why people are willing to pay so much for it. The size alone changes the psychological equation. Then there are the shrimp with their heads still attached. For many Europeans, this is where the courage test becomes serious. At first, staring directly at the tiny eyes feels deeply uncomfortable. Some visitors describe the sensation as strange, almost unsettling. Why should dinner be looking back at you? But once that barrier is crossed, something changes. The freshness, the flavor, and the satisfaction of pulling apart the shrimp with your own hands suddenly outweigh the initial discomfort. Your fingers become stained with garlic butter, your gloves are covered in sauce, and somehow that mess starts feeling like a badge of honor. Eventually, the table is covered with empty shells. Shrimp shells, crab shells, bits of corn, potatoes, sauce everywhere. At the beginning, that sight looked like evidence of culinary chaos. By the end, it becomes a trophy. The mess itself becomes proof that everyone actually enjoyed the meal. And that is one of the strangest lessons hidden inside the seafood boil. The slow process of cracking shells, laughing at mistakes, helping someone pull apart a crab leg, and sharing everything from the same table creates an instinctive bond. The artificial elegance of individual plates and silverware can sometimes separate people without anyone noticing. But here, everyone is fighting the same battle. Everyone gets messy. Everyone struggles. Everyone laughs. And suddenly, the table feels less like a restaurant and more like a scene from an American movie where complete strangers somehow become friends before the credits roll. But don't get too comfortable, because behind all that sweet crab meat waits another enemy: spice, a sea of fire. Do you really think you know what a flavorful meal tastes like? Forget everything you learned about salt and pepper. The moment an American-style seafood bag is opened, the first thing attacking your senses isn't the smell of the ocean. It is the thick, fiery storm of seasoning covering everything. For Europeans who pride themselves on allowing the natural flavor of ingredients to speak for itself, this can look less like a refined meal and more like a massacre of taste buds. British visitors have openly admitted, we're really not used to this huge amount of spices. In London or Paris, a little herb might be enough to complement shrimp. Here, the seafood can practically disappear beneath the seasoning. The orange-red sauce isn't simply sprinkled over the food, it surrounds it. It transforms the